Invite everyone to have a seat. I want to welcome everyone tonight to Kinsgway on behalf of the Mar Schnabel Adult Education Institute and the Kinsgway Women's Organization. This is probably the coldest night of the year to date, and probably the coldest night that we'll have between now and the end of the season. And to the extent that you all have come out tonight is really a great testament to all of you, and a testament to the interest that our speaker this evening has engendered. And it is a great honor for us to host such a wonderful evening. I want to encourage everyone to take part, to learn and take part of many other programs that Kinsgway has to offer. Tomorrow morning, as every Sunday morning, Rabbi Mordechai Schiffman offers a shir, Locks and Learn breakfast on Pirkei Avos. That'll be tomorrow morning, approximately 9 o'clock, 9:15, after the second Shachris Minyan. To introduce our speaker tonight, I would like to call upon Melanie Marmer, who is the founder, director, organizer of the Kinsgway Women Organization, and has been a great contributor to Kinsgway over the years. Melanie.
So I want to welcome everybody to the Kinsgway Women's Organization and the Adult Ed program. I think it's really a pleasure for us to have, and really an honor to have, Judge Ruchie Freier here tonight. I have an opportunity. I know she's going to tell you her personal journey, but if she's not going to tell you what I see from the other side, sitting as an attorney and watching the way she metes out her justice. Even though she has certain things that she needs to do based on the law, I watch her tell the people, this is a very serious offense. It could affect the rest of your life. You're a young person. What do you want to do with your life? She tries to get to know the individual. Yes, it's a docket that's supposed to move, and everybody has to go, everyone wants to get done by the end of the day. But she makes sure that she talks to all the individuals, especially the young people, and explains to them how something like what they're doing here could affect the rest of their life. And that really makes a difference. And hopefully it really will, they'll think about it further before they do something else. And I think that's what I see from sitting on the other side, and what kind of difference it makes to somebody that really cares about other people and how her actions can affect the rest of their lives. So it's really an honor today to introduce Judge Ruchie Freier. She sits, even though she was elected to civil court, she sits in Brooklyn Criminal Court, which we had over almost 70,000 arrests last year. And very often she sits in the arraignment part, which means she's the person that sees the first part of the case and makes a determination whether that person is going to stay in jail, what she's going to do. And I think she'll tell you a little bit about that as well. Judge Ruchie Freier.
Good sabach, everybody. Thank you all for inviting me. Thank you for coming out and braving this cold, cold weather. Thank you, Melanie Marmer, and is it Carol Seawall? The two of you conspired together to get me to come here. Let me first start off with a drink of water. Okay. So Melanie had mentioned to me a couple of times, Judge Freier, can I get you to come? Can I get you to come? I said, yeah, we can do it. And Baruch Hashem, it worked out. So I will tell you also that I have a tight schedule tonight. One of my daughters got engaged right before Shabbos, and L'chaim is tonight in my house. So everybody's preparing and setting up. So in case you want to actually see me in action, how does Ruchie do it? How does she raise her kids and her grandchildren and run around doing things? And it's happening right now in front of your very own eyes. I have my mother, my aunt, everyone came over to set up, and I'm here speaking. Okay. So it's hard to believe. It really is hard to believe. It's really been a year since I got onto the bench. It's been such a fascinating year. It went by so fast. I've learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about our system. I've learned so much about the people that it's really been unbelievable. So when I started to get invitations to go around speaking, I felt like, this is like, it's my achrayus. I need to give back. I need to share my story. I can't just keep it to myself. And then one thing led to the next, and before I knew it, I was being invited to speak in so many different locations. And I have to tell you something, I absolutely love it. I love meeting people from different communities and seeing how everybody is, because, we're all different. We all come from different backgrounds. We all serve Hashem in our own unique way, but we're very, very different. And what I've seen is, while there are many differences among us, there are many things that binds us. And sometimes we find out that we actually have more similarities than differences. So how did a Barapak girl who went to Beis Yaakov and married a bub of a boy and raised a Hasidic family end up doing arraignments in Brooklyn criminal court? Now that is a story that, I have about 30 minutes to share with you, like about at least 30 plus years, and I'll try to do the best I can. And I always tell people, whenever I speak, I have my script, I have my outline. It always comes out a little bit different, but basically you'll get the gist of my story. And I try to leave some minutes afterwards for questions. I love to hear questions and answer the questions. So I'll start off basically with my background, how I grew up. And I keep going back and forth. I don't really go in an order, in chronological order, because I'll talk about what it was like being a secretary, and then it was being a paralegal, then I'll go back to being a kid again, because it really doesn't always go in order. But if you have any questions, I'll try to clarify it. So I grew up really in a very simple Borough Park home. My parents weren't rich, they weren't famous, they were hardworking, simple people. And they really ingrained in us, their children, work values, Torah values, and just to work hard and be the best that you can. I went to Beis Yaakov Elementary School, Beis Yaakov High School, Beis Yaakov Seminary. I went on the Beis Yaakov tour of Israel. I did everything the way you're supposed to do it. And I got engaged at the age of 18. I got married at the age of 19. And then I married a boy who wanted to sit and learn. And my parents weren't going to be able to support us in any way, so I was going to continue working. And I loved being a legal secretary. I had great jobs. I was always getting better offers and better jobs. And I was really very content that way. College never really entered my mind. When I graduated high school back in the early 80s, Torah college really wasn't around, and there wasn't any opportunity for a girl from my background to go to a college that would really respect my standards. And I was very content. I didn't have any problem. I was making a lot of money as a secretary. I remember back then I was earning more than some of the men that I knew. So I thought everything was fine. And my mother, she always said to us, girls, you can do anything you want, so long as it isn't illegal, immoral, or against the Torah. So I knew that the world was open for me. I never felt constricted. I never felt restrained. I knew I could do really whatever I want. And my father, he believed in us. And this is like a lesson to all parents. My father thought that we were just great kids. He didn't really care what kind of marks we got, as long as we had derech eretz. Midos were the most important thing to him. But he thought that we were great. I grew up, I have 3 sisters. And my brother was born after I got married. He's the same age as my son, who's here in the audience. You'll see my son here tonight. So my son, Mishalayim, and my brother, Mishalim, were born 6 weeks apart. So my father really thought that we were just wonderful. I remember when I actually became a lawyer, my father calls me up one day and he says, Ruchie, I bought this magazine in Manhattan. It said the top 50 lawyers in the country. So I bought it. I didn't find your name inside. And I said, Tati, I won't be there. But he couldn't understand why, because, that was the faith he had in us. So when I grew up in the 1970s and 1980s, it was very different then. Kids were valued for being kids. We didn't have to have the highest marks. We didn't need to succeed, because I was the first grandchild of the Holocaust survivors. My Zaidi, Alav Hashalom, he always called me the feist one. I was the first one. I proved that Hitler was wrong. I was the grandchild of the Holocaust survivors. So all we had to do when we went to school was breathe. You inhaled oxygen, exhaled carbon dioxide, and you were great. Those were the only expectations that were made of us. And I sometimes feel bad for the children that are being raised today. So I always tell parents and teachers, be aware that sometimes if you have less expectations, you can get a better finished product. Sometimes less pressure means more. But the main theme that I try to bring out when I speak to people is about standards. Whatever your standards are, and yours may be different than mine, and mine are different than my friends in Williamsburg, or my cousins that live in Kiryas Joel in Monroe, New York. We all have different standards. But whatever your standards are, don't let go. Wherever you find yourself, wherever you're doing, wherever you're climbing that ladder, whether it's the corporate ladder, whatever ladder it is, don't let go, because the real world will respect you if you maintain your standards. I always tell girls that are graduating school, the message that you're going to give to somebody when you don't compromise your standards is, this is a person of honesty, integrity, commitment, and values. And that's really what the world respects. Don't be embarrassed of what you hold. Stick to it. So I have a couple of examples of the standards that I have, and I'll share it with you. Now, of course, I'm not here to tell anybody to take upon yourself my standards, but I want to share some humorous stories that happened when I was trying to fulfill my standards. So in the Borough Park Hasidic neighborhood, men and women don't shake hands. That's part of the things that we do. It's not that it's outright halacha. It's one of the chumras that we have, one of the extra stringencies that we take upon ourselves. So I remember here I was not going to be a secretary anymore. I was not going to be a paralegal. Here I'm going to become a lawyer. Now, what's going to happen? People want to shake my hand. And I discussed it with the rabbi, and of course the rabbi explained to me that I could shake a man's hand, especially if you're going to be embarrassing him. So I remember thinking to myself, am I going to start making like a whole analysis? Yes, embarrassed, not embarrassed, yes. No. So you know what? Forget it. I'm Ruchie Freier. I'm from Borough Park. My husband wears a shtreimel. I don't shake hands with men. That's who I am. And if you're not going to use me as a lawyer, then so be it. So I had one closing, and it was my clients were Satmar, and my husband, who's a mortgage broker, happened to have been the mortgage broker. And I was sitting at the closing. It was up in Long Island, a nice law firm. The bank attorney was a nice Irish Catholic guy, Steve. And he knew me, he knew my husband, he knew my clients. And he comes into the closing room and he starts shaking everyone's hand. And he comes to me, and I said to him, Steve, you know I can't do that. And he gives me a big hug. Oh, Rachel, I'm so sorry I forgot. So, you know, you can't win them all. He had no idea that hug was far worse than a handshake. And had there been a hole on the floor, I would have gone right underneath into that hole. But anyhow, so, and then when I was in law school, I made a point of, it didn't bother me if I just didn't blend in and look like everybody else. I was who I was. I am who I am. And, you know, there are some people who try to camouflage their appearance because they want to blend in. I just didn't do that. I remember the law school librarian said to me one day, you know, Rachel, you're the best dressed law student here in Brooklyn Law School. And I said, you know, isn't that funny? I couldn't help but think to myself, it was really because of my stubbornness of sticking to my standards of modesty, my standards of tznius, which made me stand out in her eyes. So you see, it didn't stop me from anything. It really didn't. But I think the most enlightening experience I had when it came to my dress code was when I worked at Ruchie Freier & Gallagher as a legal secretary. Now, I don't know how many of you know about dress down day, but in the summertime in these corporate law firms, they try to make the lawyers feel like they're really not working as hard. So instead of coming in your suits and your ties, you could dress down. You could come in casual. They had some rules, I think, that shorts weren't allowed, but it was dress down day. Now, I don't like dressing down. I like dressing up. But I had to somehow come up with something to wear on dress down Fridays. So I remember I had this denim dress. And I know that for my standards, it was borderline. You know, my sleeves were just covering my elbow. But, you know, I knew it was borderline, but I wore it anyway. And I went to work, and my boss looks at me and he says to me, Rachel, I see your forearms. And, you know, I have to tell you, not one of the teachers in school who were in charge of art tznius could have impacted me the way that attorney did. Because the message he gave me was, I know that you probably don't realize that I'm seeing something that I shouldn't see. And I realized that, you know something? He's right. I went home and I threw out that dress because I realized that I set a certain standard, and if I don't keep my own standards, people will question that. Now, we all have challenges, as we say in Hebrew, nisyonot. We all have challenges, and mine happened to have come from the inside. When I worked in offices where everybody was religious, that's when I had the hardest time. Because when I worked among people who were not Jewish or not religious, and I said, I can't do this, they knew, okay, you can't do it, you can't do it. But when I worked with people who were religious, they would say, well, come on, let's do this, come on, why can't you do this? So I found that that was really very hard for me. And I remember I once worked in the law office, and my boss was religious, and I just felt it's not right. This is not the right environment for me, not the right sviva for me. But I was torn. The hours were so convenient, the pay was amazing. Should I leave? Should I stay? So I remember that year my husband decided to go to Miron for Lag BaOmer, to daven. It's a very special time to go. And I said to him, see, David, this year I have to go with you. I'm so torn. I just don't know. Should I stay at this job? Should I go? What should I do? I'm going to go daven with you. Let's go to Israel together. So back in those days, if you remember, before cell phones and smartphones, you had an answering machine in your house. Remember, you put on the machine, you went out, and when you came back, you listened to your messages, right? So we went to Israel, I come back, and my husband says to me, Ruchie, there's a message for you. So I played the message. Hi, Rachel, it's Irene from the employment agency. Are you still looking for a part-time job in the city? I have a great opportunity for you. Now I said, if this isn't a message from God, I'll never get another message again. So I figured I'll go for the job interview. I probably won't get the job, and I'll know that I have to stay. So I went for the job interview, and it turns out this particular law firm had an arrangement with an Israeli law firm where they would exchange first-year lawyers. And it was a real rainmaker for both firms because the Israelis got the Americans got the Israelis, and it was a wonderful setup. So that year, one of the top partners, he was getting the daughter of the Minister of Finance, who was then Yaakov Naaman, Allah Shalom. Yaakov Naaman's daughter, Yael Bar Shai, was coming to work in the city. And they needed a secretary who was going to work with her. So they asked me, you speak Hebrew? You read Hebrew? So I'm not as fluent as most of you here, but I do read the Siddur every day. So I said, sure, I read Hebrew. Sure, I understand Hebrew. Guess what? I got the job on the spot. So I had to go back to my boss and tell them why I was leaving, that I really felt it was inappropriate. I felt that it wasn't the right sviva for me. And he said to me, Ruchie, if you ever want to come back, you're always welcome to come back. But I have to tell you, until this very day, Yaeli and I are good friends. And the other thing is, every year, Lag BaOmer, I go to Israel. That's the moral of those stories. So my Beis Yaakov teachers were very patient. They answered all my questions. I was the kid in class that always had a question. In fact, when my friends wanted to waste some time, they would say, Ruchie, ask a question. And I always had a question to ask. But when it came to role models, I didn't really have the role model that I really wanted. I knew that I had this feeling that I wanted to go and become a lawyer and do more, be involved on the outside. I know that in this community, it's very different. Here, you are more encouraging of your kids to go out, get involved, public service. But where I come from, the girls are really more sheltered. But I knew that I wanted it for the right reasons. And I said, who's going to be my role model? And then when I was on a trip, one of my trips in California, we stayed for Shabbos at a very nice family, and they had a book about the life of Sarah Schneera in the bedroom. Now, I went to Beis Yaakov. I learned about Sarah Schneera, who was the mother of the Beis Yaakov movement, but I didn't really learn everything about her story. I didn't learn about the opposition that she had when she first started, how many people were against her movement. Maybe I was absent that day, but I don't remember learning about it. And after I read that book, I said, Sarah Schneera is my role model. She saw something was wrong. She wanted to correct it. She was a woman who understood certain things. And even though there were many people who were against her, she still persevered. And then as I was reading her book, I came across one of the things that she taught her students, and I repeat it every time I speak, because it answers a lot of questions that people ask me. People will ask me, Ruchie, if you think you're doing things because you want to help. Maybe it's not seen as what you're doing. Maybe you shouldn't be out in the public. And it got me thinking very often when people would say that. But then I read what Sarah Schneer taught her students. And she said, every Jewish girl has to always wear a dress with 2 pockets. And in one pocket you carry the pasuk, the verse, Kol Kvuda Bas Melech Pnima. Your modesty is your badge of pride. Carry it in your heart and hold your head up high, because that's what identifies you as a Jewish daughter. But in your other pocket, you carry the pasuk, the verse, Isla Sosla Hashem Hefeiru Torasecha. Girls, you will go out there and you will see that sometimes things are wrong. Things need to be corrected. And you'll get out there, you'll be leaders, and people will follow you. And that's what she did. She trained her students to become teachers, and she sent them to the other little shtetls out across Poland. And that's how she started the Beis Yaakov movement, despite all the opposition that she had. So I like to say that I have a profession, not a career. Because if you say that you have a career, it kind of makes it sound like that's at the forefront and that your family is on the back burner. But for me, while getting higher education was important, my family always came first. So I had my kids. I wanted to still bake challah every Shabbos. Now people ask me, how do you bake challah every Shabbos? And I say, ever heard of the freezer? You don't have to make it every week. You could make it once every 2 or 3 weeks and freeze it. Those are all the little hints that I'll give people when they ask me, like, how do you do it? It's really not such a big deal if you think about it. But I try to blend my family and my job as opposed to making a balance. So my kids all had a chance to come to college with me. Every one of my kids had a chance to sit in a law school class with me. Every kid had a chance to come to my office with me, because when I said mommy's going to school, I wanted them to know where I'm going. They should know what it looks like. And then I remember I got a phone call a couple of months ago from Rebbetzin Yemima Mizrahi. I'm sure you've heard of her, from Israel. And it was Parsha Shoftim. She said, Ruchie, I want to interview you on my radio program for the Parsha. I said, okay, no problem. And I remember it was during the court session, because in Israel, when it was night, it was the middle of the day. So I had my supervisor actually cover for me in the criminal court by the arraignments. And I ran up to my chambers and I did the interview with her. And she said to me, she says, Ruchie, how is it possible you sit all day in criminal court and you hear about crimes that people commit? You hear terrible stories. How do you go home afterwards and leave it all behind you? And I thought for a second and I said, you know, Rebbetzin, it's really the other way around. I bring my home and my values from my home with me to court. Whatever I've learned as a religious girl growing up, all the emunah, all the bitachon that you have to have with you, all the experience that I have in raising my children and watching my grandchildren grow up, that's what I bring with me when I go to court. And truthfully, we have a lot to be thankful for. The values that we have, the mitzvahs that we have, the things that we really take for granted, we don't even realize how important and how valuable they are. Give me a chance to take another drink of water. So actually, I had the opportunity to do some kiruv work, because I'm always outspoken and I've always shared the fact that I'm from the Hasidic community. People would come to me who had questions, and there actually are 2 lawyers today who actually are religious, because I met them through my journey in law school. One of the girls that I sat in my first semester tapped me on the shoulder, said, is it true you have 6 kids? And that was just her way of starting a conversation. And to make a long story short, I invited her to my house. She came, I taught her how to make challah, how to make brachos. And by the time we graduated, I was invited to the bris of her first baby. She's now practicing law, I think part-time, and she has 5 children now. Really very nice story. But I really want to share with you my mincha stories, because I always think it's so important to share them. And sometimes I forget the second one. So I try to daven, to pray 3 times a day. I feel that for me it's very important. I feel it's my way of Stop everything and realize everything is from Hashem. Everything is from God. The fact that we're here, the fact that we're alive, it's all from God. And I always say, you know what? I have the best seat in the house. I have the best job. If you ever come to court, you see above every judge are the words, "In God we trust." That's like my Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Summit. It reminds me, it puts me into perspective that, whatever I have to do today, there's a God above me. Don't ever forget that. So I'm not embarrassed to daven in public. I used to daven on the subway train. I would daven wherever I am. In the airport, it's time to daven mincha, take out my siddur, daven. Who cares? But as I was starting law school, I was thinking to myself, now, I'm not embarrassed. I can go to the law school library and I could, daven mincha. But if people are going to be looking at me, I may be self-conscious. Let me try to find a place that's private. So there was a young girl who was graduating law school that year. She was from Muncie, and she was also religious. And she said to me, Ruchie, I sometimes daven right behind the cafeteria is a stairwell that's really behind the regular stairwell. So nobody really passes by. It's by a fire exit. So no one sees you there. Great spot for me. For 4 years, I davened mincha there. Now, I had become very close over my years in law school with the security guards because when I would do my Kiruv events in law school, they would help me. They would open the back door in the student lounge. They would help me schlep my boxes and my props. So it was right before graduation, and I went to the black security guard, a wonderful guy. And I said, Clyde, I'm really going to miss you guys. For 4 years, I was here. You guys always helped me out. He says, yeah, Rachel, we're going to miss you also with your little book. I said, my little book? My law school books, they weigh more than me. What are you talking about? He said, yeah, we used to see you in the security camera every day. Then it occurred to me, I was every day, there was a camera right there facing me because that was a fire exit. And I had no idea. I thought that nobody watched me, nobody saw me. So it goes to show you, Hashem is always there. Keep that in your mind, and it will actually help you. People will remember you. So what's my second mincha story? You see, that's why I keep jumping back and forth, because the topics don't always go in chronological order. But if I had a nickel for everybody who told me, Ruchie, a Hasidic girl from Borough Park, you're going to become a lawyer, who's going to come to you? Who is going to use you? I remember thinking, they're right. Who is going to use me? But you know what? I don't care if I don't even have one client. I need to know that I tried and I did it. I don't want to be in years from now a grandmother telling my grandchildren, Bobby could have been a lawyer, but she didn't go to law school. So I have to try. Now, when I finally did get through college and I did get through law school, if you would have shown me a map of North America and said to me, okay, Ruchie, look at this map. Where do you think you'll have your first office? The last place I would pick would be in Kiryas Yo, Monroe, New York. But that's where I started my law practice. And how did it happen? When I was in law school, I used to sit a lot with my uncle, Judge Schmidt, and I used to observe him on the bench. He was always my mentor. And one summer, my friend tells me, Ruchie, you spend so much time always in the courtroom doing these internships. We're here in Monroe for the summer. Why don't you go to the courthouse here in Monroe? I said, Sippy, what a great idea. I never thought of it. So I started to hang out in the summertime in the courthouses in Monroe. Now, it's very different than Brooklyn. You have like a one-stop supermarket. In one building, you have the family court, the criminal court, the civil court. Everything is in one building. And I remember the first summer that I was doing it, I was seeing mostly shoplifting cases from Woodbury Commons and speeding tickets. But the next summer, I was already studying zoning law. And I decided that let me go and observe the planning board, because then I could see what I'm learning actually in action. So I remember the first week I went to the planning board and I sit down, and I was accustomed to the other courthouses closing at 7 p.m. And I see here that it's not closing, the sun is setting, it's getting dark, and what's going on here? And I realized that the planning board stays on until they're over. And I hadn't davened mincha yet. So I said, I'm not going to miss mincha for a planning board session. I'm going to go outside, daven mincha, and come back. I came back from davening and I met a Hasidic couple that were there. They had to extend their bungalow, and they were waiting there to see if they could get their variance. And to make a long story short, their expediter was somebody who was working in Kiryas Joel. And he asked me, what are you doing here? You also get to extend your bungalow? And I said, no, I'm here to learn. I'm a law student. And as soon as I started, I said to myself, Ruchie, Satmar guy standing here with the long pace and the long scissors. You're telling him you're in law school. You may as well have told him you're an astronaut, you know? And my husband would always tell me, Zog nicht bei jeder eine. I'll translate, don't tell everybody. But I'm already embarrassed. But you see, I was so excited. I couldn't believe that I finally got to law school, that if you would have asked me, what's your name? I would say, Ruchie Freier, I'm in law school. I was just so excited. And here I tell it with Satmar guy. So to make a long story short, the next day he called me up and he hired me to help them work on their zoning code. And I said to him when he called me, I said, I'm not even a lawyer yet. Doesn't matter. I said, what doesn't matter? I said, when are you going to be a lawyer? I said, next year. So by then we'll be finished with the project. It was perfect. I said, no, I'll ask my professor if I could do some work. And you better ask your VAD in Monroe if they want to hire. Because you see, I'm a woman. Why you want to hire me? And besides, I'm not Satmar. I'm Baba. Well, to make a long story short, they had no problem with me. And I worked under my professor because you're allowed to work as a law student under an attorney's supervision. So that was my second mincha story. And then I remember the class I had, and we were learning constitutional law, and that was my favorite class. And the professor was teaching us about the woman's right to choose. And of course, I'm all about women's empowerment. I'm all about women's rights and things like that sort. But when he was teaching us the reasoning of the court, and he was talking about the woman's drudgery during her pregnancy and during childbearing, I remember thinking to myself, I have 6 children, and every time that I was carrying those 6 children was a very beautiful time for me. Every day that I gave birth was the most beautiful day of my life. I don't think I really agree with what the court is reasoning on this particular matter. So I raised my hand, and as you remember, I told you I was the kid that always asked questions. And I was a kid that always had what to say. And I said, Professor, you know, I really want to say that from my perspective, I disagree with this reasoning on this matter. I have 6 children, and every day that I gave birth was the most beautiful day of my life. Well, let me tell you what happened. The class just attacked me. Who does she think she is just because she comes from a warm, loving family? And they're going on and on and on. And the professor loved it. This is what they love, getting the class excited, getting everyone to argue. Really, that was what he was so excited about. And in that class, we had an Italian girl who was expecting. I remember he turns to her, like I sat here and she sat there. He says, Marie, what do you think? And she says, Rachel's right. So you see, stick to your values. You never know who's going to agree with you. So people always ask me, did this have an effect on your family? Going to law school, becoming a professional. Well, how did it affect your family? So it actually had an effect on my family, and I'll share it with you. So when my 3 sons, I have 3 boys and 3 girls. I would say like the Brady Bunch, but 1 husband. So when my boys were like around 8, 10, and 12, I was going through my journey. And I remember my oldest son, Moshe, sitting here in the audience, comes home one day, he says, Mommy, the boys in Chayda came to me with a phone book, a Bar Park phone book. And again, whenever I speak in Yiddish, I'll translate to English. And they said, Snishtu kan ein Frau lawyer in Bar Park. There's not one woman attorney in Bar Park, and the whole Bar Park phone book. Postet mama, what's your mother doing? So I said, Mashallah, I mean, the boys were teasing, they're championing with you. What did you say? He said, I said, it's nicht my mama. It's not my mother. I said, Mashallah, that was very smart. And that's the way to handle it. And I went to my second son, Shlomi, what do you do when the boys chepa you in yeshiva and chayda? And Shlomi, still today, is a very, very serious, frum boy. He just is always learning, always davening. I said to him, Shlomi, so what do you do? He says, me, ich mach mich nicht setin. I just ignore them. I daven, I learn the whole day. I don't pay attention. I said, Shlomi, that's a very good way to do it. I went to my third son, Milach. Milach is this cute boy with big blue eyes and blonde, curly, golden payas. I said to him, Milo, what do you do when the boys check you in yeshiva? He says, me? I'm very proud. I tell them I have a little mother that does big things. But I want to tell you all that when I ran for office last year, my biggest supporters were my kids. You should have seen what they turned Borough Park on its head. You should have seen. I even wanted to show you a palm card. They took my palm cards and they translated into Yiddish. And then they went to Rabbanim, to rabbis, and Rosh Yeshivas with my husband, and they got them to endorse me. I don't know when in history you had that rabbis were endorsing a woman to be a judge. But my kids pulled this off. And then they would have all their friends come at my dining room table. It was like the war room. And Mommy, we're going to make flyers, and we're going to put it in every shul in Borough Park. Because people all said to me, I had no chance of winning. When I announced that I wanted to run, and I was trying to get endorsements, so many of these public officials said, we really like you, but we can't endorse you because we were told that a Hasidic woman cannot win in Borough Park. But what they discounted was my husband and my 3 sons. So my husband had these petition forms in his jacket, these Langedeckel the men wear, these green forms. He didn't leave the house without at least 3 or 4 forms. I remember the first day he came home when the petitioning process started, because remember, nobody endorsed me, so I had to get on the ballot. He came home the first day of the petitioning process, I think it was like June, and he came home in the morning from davening Shachris and Babov, says, Ruchie, I got 40 signatures. I said, Sweet David, you got 40 signatures from one Shachris? I think I have a very good chance of winning here. And then my boys went and they took these Yiddish flyers, and we were going to put it in all our Patei Medrushim, every shul. We're going to go to Satma, Baba Bells. They had it all strategically planned. And we're going to put it where the men read, Mommy, in the bathroom. So anyone who thought that a woman can't win a Borough Park didn't think about what the Freier boys were going to do. They were unbelievable. Now, I remember, you should have seen when it was actually primary day. I want you to just envision this. You have these boys with the long payas and the black felt hats and the long black coats. Vote for Freier, this is my mama. Vote for Freier, it's my mother. And you would see like people say, Dan mama? Your mother, die meines heirs, are you serious? But that's how they got people to vote for me. So you see, sometimes people will say, what do you do if your kids don't understand your goals? Work with them, because my kids were my greatest assets. Then I also like to share with people, in life we all make mistakes. We're human beings. Hashem created us as a basar v'dam. We're man, and we will make mistakes. And if you make mistakes, get up. Don't let it get you down, because it's when you give up on yourself, that's when you just don't use your potential. Don't consider a failure anything other than a failure. Get up and move on. It shouldn't stop you at all. So people ask me, why did I ever do what I'm doing? Like, how did I get involved? Why did this happen? And really it was because of my deal with God. When I decided to go to law school, I first had to go to college. And I started college when I was 30. I had my 3 boys were already born, and my first semester in Toro, my first daughter was born. By the time I graduated, my twins were born. That's why I have 3 and 3. And I remember when I was starting Brooklyn Law School, I was nervous because this is going to be the first time that I was going outside of my comfort zone. I worked in corporate law firms. I worked among Jews, non-Jews, religious Jews, non-religious Jews. But now I was going to an academic environment that was much more liberal than I was. I didn't want to lose my identity. So I made my deal with God. Hashem, help me get through law school without compromising my standards. And when your children come to me for help, I will help them. Well, guess what? God wasted no time in testing me. Shortly after I graduated, I got involved with Kids at Risk in the Hasidic community. And when I first found out that there were boys that were violating the Shabbos, doing drugs, I was shocked. I was so naive. But what turned out as an offer to help one mother ended up being an organization that I founded called B'derach. and I work mostly with the boys. And at this point, I have seen 16-year-old boys 8 years later, and how they've changed, how they've matured, how they're now having families. And that's the experience that I bring with me to the bench. There's an expression in Yiddish, was mit tit fayener, what you do for others, tit men farziach. Working with these kids at risk, having them come to my house, I didn't have enough tissues on the desk when they would cry and tell me their story. People would look at them as bad boys, and I would say, these aren't bad boys. They're making bad choices because they're broken. They're suffering. And if we understand why they're acting out like this, maybe we can help them. And then shortly after that, I got involved in Ezras Nashim. I don't know how many of you know about that project of mine, but that kind of has like really taken me over. It started out as a phone call from a woman who said, oh, hi, Mrs. Freier, can you help us? We're a group of EMTs and doulas from Borough Park, and we really want to join Hatzalah, but it's really not working out. We need your help. And I remember thinking to myself, ladies who want to join Hatzalah, what could this be about? If they're these like, rah, ladies, I'm out of here. I have enough on my plate here, but let me go and meet them and see who they are. And I met these women, and I really heard their story of how they were supposed to be part of the original Hatzalah movement back in the late 70s. And then through different political things that happened, they were kicked out and never allowed to join again. So I said, I'm going to help you ladies. If I went to law school for this reason, it was worth it. And I'm still busy. It's still a challenge, but it's an amazing experience for me because I became an EMT to help them. And then once I was sitting in EMT school, I said, I have to become a paramedic. And I became a paramedic as well. So becoming an EMT and a paramedic, and people say, so Ruchie, so why did you do this? And you know what happens? Some people who were against me and who tried to oppose me called me, what in Borough Park is a terrible thing, they called me a radical Hasidic feminist. And I would say, and that's why I got so much publicity. And I would say, I'm not radical, I'm not a feminist. I said, but I do believe in this cause. And I said, it's not about women's rights. It's just sometimes women are right. That's it. So the bottom line is, my advice to everybody here really is, be proud of who you are. Be proud of what you stand for. Don't compromise your standards. And you're a group of people who are active. You are involved. You do things. When you go out and you are out into the world, be proud of your Jewish identity. And whatever it is that you observe, be proud of it. Because people really, really respect it. So I let people know what my values are, and I share it with people, and you'll be surprised, you really will be surprised how people do get it. They really get it if you're sincere. When you go out and you want to do things, always have a mentor, whether it's a Rav or it's a Rebbetzin. You need a Rav or Rebbetzin who understands you. I have mine in Borough Park. I do. I have a Rebbetzin who really gets it, and when I won the election, she says, Ruch, you come to me and I'll give you a special tchina to say, a special prayer to say that you should be successful. And here is a Hasidic Rebbetzin in Borough Park who gave me this tefillah that I say every day. And I remember also the Rav that I went to who also endorsed me. I remember once he told me, he says, and I was kind of, complaining to him that, opposition is so hard always to overcome opposition. He says to me, when Hashem blessed Avram Avinu, he gave him the bracha. He says, those who bless you, I will bless, and those who curse you, I will curse. So this begs the question, is this the best that God could do? Couldn't God just say, everyone will bless you? But the answer is that if you're in the public life, you are going to have people that are going to be against you. So whoever out there is doing something in a public way, just know that you can expect it, but that shouldn't stop you from doing the right thing. So we have 24 hours in the day, and you all hear a group of people. If you came out in this 10-degree weather with the actual real field temperature below zero, you are dedicated people and you are go-getters. Whenever you go out there and you do things, you should know that you really can be successful. And if you see a job in front of you or a task in front of you, you think, I'm not going to get involved because you know what? I'll never pull this off. we learn in Pirkei Avos that Lo alecha hamlecha l'gemar. You don't have to finish the job. If you want to get involved and help in any way, but you're not going to pull it through, doesn't mean that you shouldn't even start. So you try. So I like to end off with a little Hasidic story of Reb Zisha. Anyone here know Reb Zisha? He was the brother of Reb Meilach of Lezhensk during the 1700s. They lived. And Reb Zisha was a big tzaddik and a big Hasidic Rebbe. And when he was on his deathbed, he was crying. And the student said to him, Rebbe, why are you crying? You're such a big tzaddik. You did so much in your life. Why are you crying? And Zisha's crying, and he says to his talmidim, to his students, he says, I'm not afraid that they're going to ask me in heaven, why I wasn't like Moshe Rabbeinu. And I'm not afraid that they're going to ask me, even up in heaven, why I wasn't like King David, like David HaMelech. I'm afraid they're going to ask me, Zisha, why weren't you more like Zisha? Why weren't you the best that you could be? And I'm telling you here tonight, on Motzei Shabbos, reach into your potential. Try to be the best that you can be, because with Emunah and Bitachon, you can do things which people will all say it's impossible. That's wach. So now,
all right, we have time for a few questions. I'm going to start off with the first one. First of all, thank you so much for being here tonight. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone here that your remarks were entirely inspiring and humbling. I mean, I can barely chew gum and walk at the same time, let alone be a lawyer, a judge, a mother, a wife, an EMT, a paramedic. So thank you very much for being here. So my question is, I'm sure you're familiar with quite a few books and other movies that have come out regarding Hasidic men and women who have had struggled within the Hasidic community and left the Hasidic community, Shalom Din and others who have written about it. How is it that you were able to find your place within the Hasidic community, as well as being beyond the community, where others felt they had to leave?
So it's an interesting topic, because when I did a lot of work with my Bederach program, working with kids at risk, I really understood the pain of someone who leaves. Someone who leaves, it comes from trauma, it comes from pain, and my heart breaks for them. My story is a story that I was determined I wasn't going to let go. I said, I love my community, I'm going to fight for my way. And it took me a very long time. I started college when I was 30, and I did it very slowly. College took me 6 years, law school took me 4 years, and I always wanted to be a judge, but I knew that you have to be a lawyer at least 10 years. So if you do the math, you'll see that it took me more than 20 years. So really, with Emunah and Bitachon, and of course I had my family support, you're able to do it. But the people who leave, I'm sure there's a lot of personal sadness that's in their hearts. It's not just a community, because my community really stood by me, and my community is so proud of me. You have to see when I go to the grocery store, the judges do, like, where I'm going. To them, they think I'm like the president. To them, the fact that I won public office, my little Hasidic nephews were asking their mother, my niece, she says to me, Ruchie, my little Yankee asked me, we have an answer. She said, hey, they're so proud of me. So it took a while for my community to realize that I'm not compromising my standards. I'm still doing everything the way we're supposed to do, but it is a little bit different. Yes, it is. So it's a great community, and the people who did leave, my heart breaks for them. It really does.
Yeah, Yosef.
Your extroversion, you became a public figure.
Stand up so we can all hear your question.
You may just repeat the question.
Yes. Okay.
Due to your extroversion, you became a public figure. I was wondering if you advocated living in the public sphere within your own community with other women who may otherwise be sheltered.
So I always say that, the question was if I advocated for other women to take a public position like I have. And when people come to me, I try to listen to what their needs are and I encourage them. But not too many women have come to me saying they want to become public speakers and things like that. Most women really shy away from it. Like when people ask me why don't more women do it, because they really don't want to. They really, really don't. But now that I think I've done it, I hear my husband come home from shul saying, this man told me his daughter wants to go to law school now. So hopefully now more people will do it. But I have to tell you that, it's still hard for me. Like every day I wake up in the morning and I'll say, Hashem, I'm doing this for you. I really want to make a Kiddush Hashem. And it's hard when you're trying to blaze that trail. But again, I'm really very lucky. I have a great supportive husband and children and my mother who's setting up the l'chaim in my house right now. So I'm telling you, really families together can accomplish so much. So it wasn't just a little personal journey. It was a family project. Yes.
Thank you for being here. I have one question regarding your education process. You mentioned that you had a goal, and in order to reach that goal, you had to get to a higher secular education. Would you encourage your children to do the same thing? And that is, if they have a goal and they have a dream, would you encourage them to get a secular education outside the community?
Sure, they're doing it right now. My girls are right now in college, but of course they're doing a program that's geared for the girls of Borough Park, and everything is like in steps, in slow steps. I don't believe in taking my girl who's just fresh out of Beis Yaakov and just throwing her out into the whole wide world. I want to hold her hand and walk her through her journey as she matures and develops, and then when she's ready to take that dive into the world. But by the time she does that, I want her to be so strong in her values and really strong in her identity, and then she's ready for it. Absolutely. Yes.
Now that you've seen so many parts of the community, like you've seen the boys who get pulled off the derech because of the pressure they're under, and you see the obstacles that are to women getting involved, even though the women are expected to work, but then there's obstacles to them rising high in professional society. And even though we all know it's a beautiful lifestyle, some people fall through the cracks. Are there changes you want to make? Are there changes you yourself trying to make or trying to advocate in the whole community model of the men learning and the women sort of working but sort of not working too much? What changes can you picture advocating for?
So my mother always says there's no rules to a marriage, and everybody has their own. Everyone is unique. There's no rule that works for everybody. Right? So when I got married, he said he wanted to sit and learn. I had no idea what that really meant. Had no idea, but I loved working. So I always wondered, am I still going to get the same schar if I love working? But I think what the change that I want to bring is that if you want to do something, believe in yourself and believe that Hashem can help you and you can do it. But everybody has to find their own way. How I did it works for me. If someone else wants to go to medical school, that's a whole different challenges, a bunch of different subset of challenges, and I couldn't answer that. But I do feel, from my experience, that anyone could really do whatever they want to do. You really, really can. Of course, we have the Torah, we have halacha, and that I don't mess with. But within the framework of Torah and halacha, there's so much that we can do. Anyone else had a question over here? No women with any questions? Only the men have questions? Okay, here's one. Oh, it's interesting, but there's going to be a documentary coming out this year about my work with Esras Nashim. So it started out really as a documentary just about the women starting this EMT organization, but it kind of spilled over into a lot of what I'm doing. So look out for it. You'll see a lot of behind the scenes of me. It's called 93 Queen.
It also is an example of, in the outside world, people also, like Sheryl Sandberg from Facebook, she's the number 2 in Facebook after Mark Zuckerberg. And she's very into, women should, rise and become the best in they can be, and exactly the same thing. So this isn't only a unique thing in the Jewish community or among the Orthodox women. It's happening in the real world too.
Sure. I was interviewed on Megyn Kelly's show 2 weeks ago. She was doing a series of women with faith. And it was amazing how so much of what I was saying was really resonating to her audience, to her viewers, all across America, because women want that. Women want to be able to know, I can be faithful to my values, to my religion, and I still want to be a mother. As much as I think it's important for women to have equal rights, I still love being a mother and a grandmother, and I wouldn't give that up for anything. So it's a unique role that we have, right? And then people always ask me, I love this question about, well, doesn't the Jewish religion discriminate against women? I love that question. I'll say, first of all, I would say, I am not second class, so it doesn't affect me, that's for sure. And then I'll say, Judaism really elevates women. We're on a pedestal, because what determines anybody's religion and their Jewishness is who is their mother. Their father could be the greatest rabbi, but if your mother isn't a Jew, you're not a Jew. And I think that tells me that God thinks very highly of us. Yes?
You said you were elected to civil court, but you're working in criminal court.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
I asked myself the same question. That's a great question. So what I learned after I got elected was that the OCA, the Office of Court Administration, actually assigns judges to different courts. And I was about 2 weeks before my term started when I was told that I might not go to civil court. And it was like, I think a week before then I was told I'm going to criminal court. And I said, are you kidding? I said, I'm a Beis Yaakov girl from Borough Park. I don't even watch movies or TV. I said, what do I know about criminal court? What are you putting me in criminal? Oh, we'll train you. We'll train you. And that's when I learned really it's not so much about knowing the penal code, because you could just look it up right there and you'll see what the penal code is. It's really your values, your experience, your life experience that really makes you who you are when you have to decide and make decisions. Yes, Melanie.
Can you just explain like what you actually do in criminal court and how you are able to maneuver it? Because obviously it's a 7-day-a-week job very often.
So another thing that I found out about criminal court is that it's like a hospital. It never closes, because by law, when a person is arrested, they have to be arraigned within 24 hours. That means criminal court never closes. That means judges have night court. And if you're new, you get the most. So I had 13 weeks of night court. I remember thinking to myself, night court? So instead of working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, you work Wednesday through Sunday, 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. That means Friday and Saturday, I have a problem. I'm not coming in those hours. And I had amazing support among the judges. We all sat down and they all picked the nights that they were going to cover for me. And then I would pay them back on a Sunday or a Wednesday. And you sit down in criminal court, and I was assigned mostly to arraignments. And arraignment says, as a person gets arrested, and they have to know what their charges are, and the judge has to decide if they're going to set bail or not set bail. And what I've seen is that my experience of working with the kids at risk and understanding why people do bad things, it translates and it spills over to all different communities. It's the same whether you grew up as a Hasidic boy, or if you grew up as a black kid in the inner city, or wherever you come from. If you are coming from a broken home, or if someone is coming from an abusive home, then there's going to be a lot of pain and a lot of bad choices by these kids. That's what I've seen. I can't talk too much about being on the bench. They don't let me. The rules don't allow that. But I could share my personal story. And then I also do see in the criminal court there are a lot of treatment parts. The mayor now is trying to close Rikers Island and actually offer more treatments to people as opposed to just putting them in Rikers Island. So that all really ties in with what we know as Hashem always waiting for us to do tshuva, Hashem waiting for us to turn things around and do what's right. So that's really what I see, what I take with me. What I've learned as a girl in Beis Yaakov, those values that I have, is really what keeps me going. I remember I was telling Megan Kelly, she was asking me, I had said that my religion didn't hold me back. In fact, it was my religion that gave me the backbone and the support that I need. Because if I would believe that everything is just me, I wouldn't do half the things I've done. If I would have thought that I'm going to be in charge of something turning out right, but you know that Hashem really is in charge of everything. And that if you know that, then you're not afraid. Anyone else? Before I really have to go back to Borough Park? Oh, by the way, I'll give you my email address. because people always have questions afterwards, and I'm very happy to hear feedback from you. It's very easy. My private email address is judgefreier@gmail.com. So if you know how to spell my name, so I'll spell it to you again. So it's Judge, JUDGEFREIER@gmail.com. Send me your thoughts, your comments, your feedback. I'd love to hear from you. Okay? Good luck. Okay.
Would you like us to bring you some dessert to go?
Oh, no, it's okay.
She'll have it. Look on.
Yeah.